Welcome to this open forum. My name is Cisek, and Chrissie Parker will be with me today, and we're going to answer all your questions. We've got a sort of a clear setup, so I've got a lot of questions as well, but obviously we want to have some input from you. So a couple of little things, a disclaimer. This webinar is going to be recorded and posted online on the Feng Shui Society YouTube channel. Got to be careful about and mindful of personal, privacy issues. The opinions expressed within the content of this forum are solely those of the experts, unless otherwise noted, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, and values of the Feng Shui Society, its members, website, or its affiliates. The information and suggestions presented are not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and are not intended as a medical advice. And kind of general framework, there are many Feng Shui schools and approaches, hence there's not necessarily consensus on different aspects of Feng Shui. So I might have one perspective on this and others can have another one, and that's why it's an open forum. So there's Chrissie and I here. We've got our websites. We put the information in the chat, the links. We'll show you that later. But the good news is that combined, we have over 50 years of knowledge, wisdom, and experience. I think we're good. Don't you agree, Chris?
Yeah, I do.
So we'll maybe tell you a bit about our approaches, how we work with Feng Shui later. But the format is any questions all questions are welcome and valid, and that's how we're going to learn. Any questions whatsoever. If you have any visuals, you can share them via Zoom screen share or email them in real time. I might not be able to get them now, but we'll see how it works. And again, be mindful of personal privacy. If you've got any kind of sensitive questions, you can ask them at the end of the presentation of the forum once we stop filming. And then you can tell us a bit about the level of your experience. Are you beginner, intermediate, or professional? You can put that in the chat, with the chat function. And you can also say quickly where you're from. So that gives an idea. But when you ask a question, we can ask you that as well. So we've got a few questions. We'll kick in with a few questions straight away. And the first question comes actually from Jackie, who's here. And Chrissie, do you want to read the question? Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can. Yes. I have a question regarding a client's home I'm currently advising on. She's having an extension built. The toilet for the downstairs and for the bathroom upstairs have ended up in the same sector, which is the southeast. My client has read that drains have an impact on wealth, that is, money going down the drain. What are your thoughts on the location of toilet/bathroom in the southeast? What elemental remedies would you suggest? I am mindful that there are lots of levels of Feng Shui going on, as flying stars could also be taken into consideration, and having a bathroom/toilet where there are bad stars would be a good thing. Hope this question brings up some debate about the location of the bathroom in that home and the remedies to use.
So actually we have 3 questions, but we can start with those 2 in red. So Chrissie, over to you.
Over to me, yes. Well, yes, it's been an age-old one, that, hasn't it? Money going down the drain in the southeast area. Of course, in ancient times, the southeast, if you had a toilet in it, it was probably very unsanitary and all that sort of thing. And of course, life today has very much changed. And as we know, the area that we're talking about, the southeast, is actually represented by the element of wood. And of course, when you have water in that area, bathroom, toilet, that can drain the wood because the wood needs the water. And this is representative of your wealth area. So you might say, well, it's taking all the wealth and it's all just disappearing. Hopefully, if there's enough light in, so first of all, I'm going to say that in situations like this, obviously the plans have been made. This is where it's going to be for the whole well-being of that site, where the plumbing is, how it's costed up. So there's no way that they're going to move where it is. That's a fixed thing. So this is how we say, well, what can we do to make it better? So first of all, we want to put some more wood in the area so that we can reinforce the wood. So when the thing is finished, if you've got some light in there, one of my first recommendations would be that you'd try and see if you can get some sort of plant in a pot that grows in that area. Shall I go through everything, Jan, that I think of, or do you want to?
Well, maybe just because this is recorded and other people might be watching it later and they might not have the level of understanding that we have. So maybe just kind of explain briefly about the Southeast, why is kind of represented in Feng Shui for wealth, and also maybe I've got the 5 elements, briefly about the 5 element theory, so people have a kind of general understanding of what we're talking about.
Okay, right. Well, the Southeast is, as I say, the area of wood. The bagua is a plan that we lay over a building, or we can lay it over a space or an individual room. And the bagua is a set plan from ancient Chinese times, if you like. And it does contain different sectors that are different elements or represented by different elements. We use the 5 elements, or we recognize the 5 elements, which are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And we have 9 areas. And in fact, there are 3 areas that are earth. Do you want me to go through all the different numbers?
Well, just generally, because we're just focusing on one area. So maybe just generally.
Okay, yes. So we've got 3 areas of earth. We have 2 areas of metal, 2 areas of wood, 1 of fire and 1 of water in the whole sector that has the whole area of the plan, which is 9 different squares. Now, the wood in the Southeast area, if people know about the elements and what happens is, well, obviously, a wood or a tree needs water to feed it, and then if you've got wood goes to the fire because the fire needs wood. Fire goes to the earth, that's the ash, and earth goes to metal, and then metal goes to water. This is the cycle that they go in. So when we've got an area like the Southeast, wood, and we are putting too much water in that area in the form of plumbing, then we're saying that the wood is being weakened, and so we need to strengthen it. And that's why we strengthen it with lots more wood. And so we might think of all sorts of different symbolism, as well as something like a plant. We might think of things like tall shapes, the colors of green. We can have images of trees and things like that. These are all the things that we would put in that area, in those rooms, to our own taste. And then obviously we're thinking of how we're going to stop the water. Obviously the wood is taking the water. And then what we also recommend is that we use some earth, which will plug the draining effect as well. And in that we will use things like crystals or stones. There are various crystals that can be used, a complete assortment. I would say some of the best is clear quartz or rose quartz. So those are the sort of elements that you can use and put in that area to help stop, sort of reinforce the lack of money, if you like. It's obviously not going to be an area where you put sort of lots of artwork, I would doubt, unless you've got a huge bathroom or a huge toilet. There are always the other sensible things that people talk about, like keeping the toilet seat down, keeping the doors closed. To me, those are just things that I would say aesthetically are pleasing, and you know, no one wants to walk to the end of a corridor in a house and see the toilet straight ahead of you and the toilet seat up. It's just not very attractive. So it's just one of those things for me as well. And I think this is where that if you like, that thing comes from, that people say that you should do it. So those are my sort of main suggestions that I would suggest. I don't know if I've described it well enough if people don't understand about the whole elements and 9-star key, or sorry, not the 9-star key, the Bagua. But I don't know whether you want to add something, Jan, to that.
Sure. So we'll have another question, and we'll show the Bagua. So for people who haven't seen it before,
yeah,
I've got different ways. So there's another question after that, slightly related to this. But I have a slightly different view. Obviously, historically, as you said, you know, toilets, the sanitation wasn't very good anyway. You know, it doesn't matter whether it was China anywhere. So the germs and everything, and that's where this kind of idea of money going down the drain, because somebody got sick because of the bacteria or germs, whatever, that will affect their prosperity, especially if they're kind of, you know, breadwinners or whatever. So that's how it all started from there. And obviously, we have good sanitation. Most places on this planet have good sanitation, especially in the West. So that sort of idea, the money going down the drain, unless you actually physically flashing banknotes or coins, it doesn't make any sense to me. Plus, I'm sort of coming from a perspective of empowerment, and I don't want to be kind of influenced too much by the environment. I understand the impact of the environment, but I don't think toilet controls my finance. I do. So that's my personal view. Now, when it comes to clients, because they've read something, that opens another discussion. How do you deal with that sort of issues where there might be, which I call false problems or superstitions, or kind of dogmatic kind of perceptions about certain things? And that's, I think, a valid question for the consultants, because we have to deal with that on a daily basis. You know, how do you kind of undo and explain in a context what's been passed on for generations? So I don't have a problem with placing toilet anywhere. I mean, traditionally, obviously, especially in Vastu Shastra, in the Indian version of Feng Shui, the northeast part of the house is not the best place because it's the coldest. So there will be more damp and there will be problematic. But if you've got good heating, and most places have that, it's not a problem. Plus, you know, you have to put your toilet somewhere. And, you know, whether it's the wealth cord, a relationship, or a career, it will kind of create that sort of, I would call it illusion that might affect you. But obviously nowadays we have good kind of technologies to have nice bathrooms. So that aspect is not a problem anymore. So I wouldn't say that the toilet will drain any of these issues. Having said that, this, when it comes from the 5 elements theory, we could suggest certain things. So, you know, so you've described very nicely the kind of supportive cycle. So you strengthen the wood element, you know, but we also have controlling cycles. So the earth, there's a lot of water in the bathroom. So the earth controls water. And what's earth? Well, terracotta, you know, tiles, anything to do with the earth, as already does. So the bathroom, most bathroom will have that naturally. They'll probably have tiles. And then you can add, you know, obviously colors. You added plants, you know, especially if there's a window. For me, the most important thing in bathrooms is ventilation. And quite often it's not very good. And unless you have a window, you can open it, you can ventilate. If there's no window, the ventilation is the biggest problem. So investing in a good ventilation, so there's no condensation of you know, moisture and so on, well, definitely it's a good idea. Yeah? So it kind of moves the whole energy. Also, you can look at other elements, and you see in 5 elements theory is very open to interpretation. Different schools have different ways. So a bit of fire can be good, but too much fire is bad, for example. Or a bit of metal is beneficial, but too much metal can be problematic. So it depends on the quality and the amount and the actual elements. So as you mentioned, plants, which is great, it's physical, and it has kind of outgrowing energy, but also you mentioned kind of symbolically, maybe pictures of nature. If I didn't have a window in my bathroom, and I don't, I have a big picture of a street in London. So kind of creates this image of an open space, create this image of a window. So just open up my view. So you can do that kind of metaphorically, visually, but also physically as well. So so these sort of things you can do. And again, depends. We don't have enough information, how it's laid out and so what's there. But these are kind of general elements that you can definitely try. And I think later we can definitely debate on the position of the bathroom and what else can you do in the bathroom, because for some reason bathrooms have a bad reputation in Feng Shui. I don't find them problematic. Actually, I like designing them, and you can design amazing bathrooms now. And obviously there's a few considerations you mentioned, coming in, seeing the toilet and so on. So you can obviously position, if you're building it, I'll position so that I don't see the toilet, just for privacy and kind of aesthetics. It's just common sense. A lot of Feng Shui is basic common sense, good design, good kind of architectural practices. So I don't know whether Jackie's here, whether we kind of answered your question.
I've got a couple more points, actually. One of the things I just wanted to say, just interrupts, sorry there, is, of course, today there are so many, it's become a big thing when things are being built, that almost every house has got about 5 toilets in it. We think of those modern buildings today, there's toilets all over the place. Hey, are they all losing their money? But the other thing I would say is when someone's, and Jackie's probably addressed this already, but whenever people are putting on a renovation or anything like that, I always, myself, I would always recommend a client to actually address the guardian or the diva of the house and talk about what's happening, because it might be that you're going to knock a bit of a wall down and you're going to do this. And I think actually sort of honouring the house and the building that it is, and what you're going to do to it is a very good thing, and it may well assist the future extension build going extremely well. So that's just my little take on it. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point that you raised, because again, I practice holistic Feng Shui, where I focus on how you can enhance and empower people through the environment. And again, it's like so Southeast is considered a wealth area of the property, but there are other ways. Is the next question. I'll show other ways of looking at that wealth area. And if you kind of start with a negative kind of perception of a space, that kind of will prime you to all kinds of issues that might not be real. They're, and as I said, I call them false problems. And therefore, it's good to have a kind of balanced view to look at what's possible, what can you do, instead of kind of worrying too much that is going to drain your finances because you have a toilet, because somebody said so somewhere online. So, but we'll come back to the bathrooms and generally kind of give people ideas about that as well, because that's an interesting area, and a lot of people like to design them better and better now. But Jackie, do you, if you unmute yourself, you've got any questions or?
No, you explained that great. I agree with what Chrissie has said, and I like what you've said as well, Jan, because it's given another perspective on it all. So really good. Thank you very much. Okay,
excellent. So the next question is slightly related and comes from Carol Hessian. And then she just sent this question. She couldn't come today, so she registered. So a question I have: a missing good fortune corner, but it does not get any real sunlight. So this is her, I think, personal case. Though I have plants, I do not grow to, they don't grow to any height. The wind also whips around that space. A wall either side open at the front. Kind of vague, but it's about wealth corner. So question is, how do I resolve to maintain a stable, fortunate area? So we can start generally with what to do in the wealth corners, and then we can go more deeply into issues to do with sunlight and plants and so on. So as you can see on the screen, there are two kind of ways of looking at this Bagua model. And so one perspective, traditional, coming from I Ching, an ancient China, southeast is the wealth, blessing, or prosperity area. So any part of your southeast property or house is that. But another perspective, a recent, maybe 20, 25 years old concept is that it's to do with your energy, where the door is, the energy comes into your house through the door. So the wealth corner is the top left corner of the whole house, or the flat, or the bedroom, or any room, or even your desk. Yeah. So that's another perspective. One is kind of external, so where external influences, directions affect this whole idea. And the other one is more internal, your energy, whatever comes in inside, you decide more. So both are valid. And a lot of people use both at the same time. Sometimes they overlap. Obviously, if your house is facing north, they'll overlap, but sometimes they don't. You can use both, you can mix them, and I've done it several times. So let's start with sort of ideas for, how do you maintain a stable, because the keyword question was stable, fortunate area. So she's got this idea that is missing. Again, I don't subscribe to this idea of missing area, because then it kind of implies that there's only one area of your home that has wealth in it, or energy of wealth. I believe that all those areas are within our space, and you can have it everywhere. Yeah. So you can also use it symbolically as well. So I've got a money plant, and it's not in the wealth corner, but it's working for me. It's in a different area, and that's my kind of wealth energy remedy, if you like. So, so there's different ways of doing it. But what would you say, Chrissie?
Well, yes, I know what you're saying, but it is something that I know when we were training, we were sort of very aware that you could end up with this missing space, and certainly it might look a bit bleak. And I think more than anything, if Carol's got an area like that, or anybody has, you want to actually just make it look nice, even if it doesn't get much sunlight. I think I would make sure that I make it look a really nice space. And you can do that with perhaps using some sorts of plants that will grow there if they're small, using the color green, tall shapes, this sort of thing, and even, wood. I think it's actually about making that part look beautiful, and not that you look out on it or that it's there and it's sort of bleak, horrid little corner that's your backyard or something. And there are a lot of houses that are built like that, terraced, that you do end up with that sort of space. And I think whatever, you should always try and make it look as nice as you can. And the other thing it was something I was told many, many years ago, that actually I would agree with you, Jan, that I do think the energy comes in everywhere. But I was often told, and I bet Carol will remember this because we trained together, that the money actually, we can also think of the money as coming in the helpful friends area, the area 6. So it can be also that if you're feeling that your wealth and blessings area is a little depleted for whatever reason, is actually make sure you put a few things extra in your helpful friends area, even with the intention that is going to boost your money coming in. I don't know whether you want me to go through the sorts of things.
Well, no, that's quite useful, because we can go deeper, because obviously you can do something in that area. You can, if you believe in that is missing, you can correct it with mirrors, with things outside, if it's possible, with light. There are lots of different remedies for any area, but some of them kind of universal. As you said, beautiful things, make it interesting, vibrant, yeah. But also, and for her, a keyword was stable. She wanted some kind of stability. So maybe heavy sort of pots, if she had plants that can grow without much sunlight. There's a lot of plants that don't require much sunlight. Yeah. And other things that kind of give her that stability. But again, you've mentioned your helpful friends area, but also the family area, because that's wood as well. That's related to the wealth. So maybe there's something she could do that. And it sounds like she wants a kind of a more metaphoric remedy, because she used the word stable. So she wants that stability for finances. So she needs to figure out what's happening in her environment, maybe the whole place, not just one area, where she gets that feeling that her fortune or prosperity is not stable. So I think that would be useful question and also she mentioned wind also whips around the space. So maybe that kind of movement of wind kind of gives her this feeling of instability. Also,
you can grow very good climbers up in pots. She talks about there are walls either side, so she could actually put something like the evergreen jasmine, Tracheospermum, which is absolutely amazing. It grows like crazy. Yes. It's always big and green. It smells gorgeous in the summer. That for me would be, if I've got a bit of a bare space like that, that's what I would put in a pot and put out there.
So that general, for anybody, general kind of remedies that kind of suggest prosperity, growth, stability, but also personal things. People who have personal perception of their wealth and prosperity, and they can use those symbols as well. So and they work very well. If we've got time, I'll tell you some stories from my practice how people use this. But I think key message for her was that yes, do whatever you need to do in that area, but also enhance the whole home that has that vibe of prosperity and that stability in some way or another. Maybe it's in the bedroom or other areas where she get that sense of, when she comes home, she get a sense of that her fortune is stable. So that was interesting, and we kind of covered the Bagua now, so people can see. There's lots of information on that, and it's a very neat model. People like it. I'll have some views on that later when we kind of finish today. Next question. It's an interesting one. Silver bullet remedy. So I'll read it because somebody sent it to me. Hi, Jan. I was wondering if you could recommend any Chinese Feng Shui shops that I could shop at in London. I'm having extreme money problems and also very poor health. I've heard Feng Shui bracelets can help. Could you please recommend anything and where do I go to shop? Is it Chinatown? Unfortunately, I live in, I just deleted where she said. People keep saying that how this bracelet has changed their lives and made them rich and sorted all health problems. I have sent you a picture, and this is the picture, and kindest regards. So so that's an interesting topic of what I would call kind of quick fixes. A lot of people, especially with complex problems, looking for quick fixes. What's your take on this, Chris?
Oh, well, I'm not really into quick fixes, I have to admit. I think they're a sort of useful accessory sometimes, but I really would say that her home just needs someone to survey it, perhaps douse over it, even douse over the plans of her property, and just tell her what's going on there. It may well be that someone can do something remotely and actually shift something of the energy that's going on, and probably ask her a few more questions. They may, we tend to, well, I've certainly been trained in, lot of awareness of electromagnetic fields, like you were talking on it earlier, Jan, things like ventilation in bathrooms and places, so that you don't have mold growing, which again can be very poor for your health, and very much also geopathic stress, which again, dousing even remotely, we can suss that out, and actually it is possible to do something about it for people. So yes, I'm not saying don't go to Chinatown, and there are lots of shops there, but all I would say is I don't think that would necessarily help the person. It might psychologically for a while, but I think there's perhaps something deeper going on in the home, because I think if you've got trouble in your body and whatever, I think it's usually something going on in your home and in the land. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So I completely agree. Actually, she phoned me, and she couldn't afford Feng Shui consultation, even, she had only £10, and that was the bracelet. So that was her only solution for her very complex problems. So that's quite common. A lot of people with very complex problems looking for simple solutions, they do not exist. I explained to her that, if this bracelet worked, it wouldn't cost £10. I would pay 1 million for such a bracelet, if it solves all your problems. So it's difficult in those situations where to start. But as you mentioned, health will be the first step, because if somebody is not healthy, then probably not going to resolve their financial problems. So I would start there. Check for basic things like geopolic stress, electromagnetic radiation. Check, simple things like decluttering. It empowers people. People like more space. It creates new opportunities, kind of symbolically, and so on. But she was really plugged into this silver bullet solution. After I explained and talked to her, she still asked me, "Where do I get this bracelet?" So I don't think she's going to solve it.
I think the thing is, sometimes, you just have to work at it yourself. And, you talk about decluttering. And I often say to people that, if you declutter a bit, so often you discover things that you actually already have that you didn't know you'd got, and stops you spending more money on something else. And it's a sort of cycle that people get into, that they're in a mess and they just keep spending more money. And they're thinking that the more money they spend on A, B, or C, it's going to help all their problems. So I think you're very right there, Jan. I would often say, declutter something small, maybe.
Yes.
That's what I'd say.
But having said that, there are sometimes simple problems and there are simple solutions. Example, dirt electricity. You've got a very inexpensive meter. You can measure your dirt electricity, which is part of electrosmog spectrum. You measure how much dirt electricity you have. And if it's a lot, then you buy a little plug, little filter, you plug it in, and literally in nanoseconds, your problem's solved. So, but there are simple kind of problems which can be defined, measured, and then there will be a solution. But with complex problems, financial problems, health problems, and it depends, she's been there for a long, long time. So many issues that one thing, little bracelet, can't resolve. And also it can kind of set her on a false path, because then she'll always look for another bracelet, another little remedy that somebody promises that will make you rich or solve all your problems. And that's a bit of a danger in Feng Shui, that people kind of plug into this idea that all their life problems can be solved through little environmental changes. I'm not saying that it can't, but so next problem, and we'll come to your question. But anybody has any comments about this issue of clients trying to find kind of quick fixes for their big problems? Okay, so problem sleeping, another question. Since I've moved to this flat, I have problems with sleeping. I've tried different positions for my bed, in my bedroom, but I haven't noticed any significant difference. What Feng Shui remedies can you recommend for this? Many thanks. Chris.
Yes, okay. Well, I see you've put is that you've written that?
Yes, so that's key things that I think, but is there anything else you want to start with? And we go through the list.
Yes, I look a lot at that. I agree with all the things that you've written down there, definitely, which I think don't help. And the number of people who do put their phone chargers on their bedside tables, or have electric cables running down alongside their beds, and things like that, and also sleeping with their heads very near to perhaps a power plug. It might even be just behind the bed head or something like that, and they don't realize. I know if you go and read, with an electromagnetic, with a meter, you can show people what's happening there. I think it's one of those things that I know you might have moved beds, moved to a different bedroom or whatever, but you might find you're actually still near a plug. That's what I would say. So that's why I would really look at all those things. Definitely, I agree all of the things that you've written down there.
So just for people, geopolic stress in general terms is kind of disturbed or not very harmonious energy coming from the earth. Sometimes geopolic stress can be neutral, but most of the time it can cause, not cause, but contribute to health issues. And there's a lot of research on that and studies. So you need somebody who can dowse, if your Feng Shui consultant has those skills, you can ask them to do that. Most consultants do that, not all. So that's the first step, because you want to sleep in a safe place. Then obviously all the issues of electrosmog, dirt, electricity, and so on, Wi-Fi need to be addressed. And there's tons and tons of research about that. I know 30,000 papers on the dangers of electromagnetic radiation. I've got probably 5,000, so you can find them on my website. So that's it's very well researched study. And obviously, for example, Wi-Fi, most people don't switch off their Wi-Fi. They're not using the internet at night. You can set it up in your settings. It goes off at 11 o'clock, whenever you go to sleep, and comes on again in the morning. Or I like to do it physically. It's my meditation. I switch it off every night, and in the morning I switch it on. But you can do, there's lots of plugs, and you can set it up so it's automatic, so you don't have to think about it. But research suggests that having that sort of radiation around you, even if you sleep in total darkness, which is very important for melatonin production. So in order to sleep, you need darkness. And any light, even one photon of light, can disturb your melatonin production, which is, so total darkness, if you can, you get one of those masks, and that can help a lot of people with the sleep problems. But even if you sleep in total darkness and you have radiation, your body senses this radiation, and light has electromagnetic spectrum. So your body thinks, oh, there's light. And then melatonin doesn't work and you don't fall asleep. And from my studies, I think bedroom and how you sleep is the most important thing in Feng Shui. All the problems probably start from there, because if you don't sleep well, your health at some point will be affected in different ways. And deep sleep especially. A lot of people sleep, but they don't go into deep sleep, which is kind of holy grail of medicine, because during deep sleep, which is a very short period of time, your sleep is 90-minute cycles, and the middle part is kind of deep sleep, and you can have 5 cycles in the night. Deep sleep, during the deep sleep, you rejuvenate, your DNA is replicated. It's a magical time, and in many cultures, there's a lot of writing, but now there's a lot of supporting evidence for that. So why for mattress? Because any metal around you will amplify electromagnetic radiation. So obviously you can control it in your home to some extent, but your neighbors might have a Wi-Fi. You might have strong 5G mobile masts nearby that kind of affects your home. So the less metal around you, so no metal beds and foam mattresses, you remove as much metal as possible, then there is less kind of attracting element for this electromagnetic stress. So solid headboard, so you feel secure, protected. We want to have that as well. And then bed in the power position if possible, quite often it's possible. So you have support of the wall, you can see the door across, so you're not sleeping with the door behind you. But even if you have that sort of situation, you can put some things reflecting the door behind you. And then direction. So obviously in Feng Shui, we quite interested in how direction affects us in different ways. But the only kind of supporting evidence for direction I found is to do with the north direction. So they've studied animals, and they noticed that not all animals, but a lot of animals can align themselves north-south, so with the head towards north, because it kind of align themselves with the magnetic field of the earth. And that kind of makes sense, yeah. And in many cultures, that's kind of folk remedy for all kinds of problems. So if it's possible, you could sleep with your head towards north, and all the other things are sorted out. That's probably a good setup. But a lot of people try different directions according to their horoscopes and so on. And quite often it's not practical because, you know, you've got a square or rectangular bedroom and suddenly you have to adjust your bed according to certain directions and it won't work. Yeah, so that's an issue. So just to summarize, definitely electrosmog. I'll deal with that. You know, switch off your mobile phone. You're not going to use it. You know, you can always have the set it up in a way that, you know, you're not disturbed, and then check geopolic stress and do something. But also, you know, you're going to sleep, and the whole atmosphere around the sleep is important. You know, how you kind of relax. You know. Whether you have a bath before, obviously we didn't mention all kinds of things. There's lots of things, you know, environmentally, temperature, slightly cooler bedroom is better than hotter, although some people like it. Air quality, you know, whether you open the window, you know, you can have some air cleansing plants, ionizers, and so on. Noise, you know, if you're busy living by the busy street, you know, you get used to the noise probably, but still can affect you.
Clutter as well. Clutter,
yes.
And not having work things in your bedroom, because they, again, are something that obviously your brain is not switching off if you've got things related to your work. But I do think clutter as well. If you have a lot of clutter around, clothes around, books or stuff, I do think keep the bedroom as clear as possible if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And also kind of nice personal things. So when I wake up, I see two big posters, which I love, and they make me happy. And I've had them for ages, and they still work. Sometimes you get used to the art and kind of artwork, but these have this nice kind of images. And so I see them when I go to sleep, but also when I wake up, I see these big posters of things that I like. So that makes me happy and kind of relaxed. So. Right. Any other questions? So this is the questions we were sent. We can talk about the bedrooms that we've started earlier. Or if you've got any questions, anybody, this is a good time. You can either say them and unmute yourself or write them in the chat, please.
Can I add just another thought about bedrooms?
Sure.
Air quality, you touched on that, Jan. I know for some people an air filter is very useful. So an air purifier, because some people are intolerant to what's coming out of the fabric of the building in new places. And then on another level, what's known as predecessor chi. So sometimes the energy of the people who lived there before is still in that space. So
very good point.
Yeah, so yeah, that's another thing I would think about doing some kind of space clearing in there to clear out any old energy left behind by the people that came before. Clear out their stresses out of the fabric of the room, and then put your own good stuff in.
Absolutely, that's a good point, especially you know, if you move into a new place, but also if you've got some kind of war and stuff, you want to clear that as well. That's you know, can create some kind of atmosphere in your bedroom, you know. So you could do that for your sort of problems, you know, if you worry about something. Have concerns. So that's a useful kind of reminder to, from time to time, do some space clearing. And obviously, if you've got an air purifier, and I've got actually a Dyson one, so it kind of moves the air gently, and it's on automatic, so it detects if there's any kind of extra pollution, if you like, and it kind of works harder. So I don't have to think about it. So I outsource this bit to technology, and I have actually two ionizers, you know, so I like that kind of nice fresh air when I go to sleep. So very good. Yes, a good reminder, because Feng Shui means wind, water, and those two elements are still very, very important nowadays. They were important in the old days, so water for survival, air as well. But the quality of air nowadays in cities is not very good. So I live in London, and unfortunately, bad news for people who live in London. 25 people today will die from air pollution, just air pollution, 10,000 a year, and that's very well researched. So. Air cleansing plants, air purifiers, making sure that you're aware of that, and definitely it's a good investment into your health, yeah. But also the quality of water. So I like to have a bath before I go to sleep, and it relaxes me, but also grounds you. So the grounding effect is well researched as well. So when you grounded, when you walk barefoot on grass or beach or wet surfaces, you kind of naturally ground it, and kind of that relaxes you, reduces inflammation, and so on. So having a bath, or a long shower, it kind of grounds you, and then you can add some Epsom salts into the water, and that again kind of distresses you, because when we stress, we lose magnesium from our bodies. So the easiest way to absorb magnesium is just add it to your bath, yeah. So actually I have two baths, I have to admit. I have bath in the morning and bath in the evening.
What a clean fellow. I do remember, actually, Jan, you were talking also recently about a client, and one of the things that she was suffering from poor sleep, and not drying your hair at night, not washing your hair at night and drying it at night, because using a hairdryer before you go to bed is not a particularly good idea, not conducive towards restful sleep.
Yeah, that was an interesting case. Again, it was a complex issue, because she had problems, all kinds of problems, but actually the solution was very simple. The cause was very simple. She would dry her hair before she would go to sleep, and she couldn't sleep. And she didn't register that actually that was causing all the issues. So she just basically changed her habit, and the problem disappeared literally overnight. So people not aware. Some people can be electrosensitive to specific frequencies. As an example, I had a client, and he was hyper electrosensitive to Bluetooth. So he noticed that we tried different things, we measured everything, and nothing happened. Then we switched off the Bluetooth, and he felt better immediately. So other frequencies, he was okay, but actually Bluetooth, for some reason, was the only case I had. Bluetooth, for whatever reason, wasn't very good for him. So he had to be very careful when he was in the office, he had to be kind of stay away from people who had, mobile phones on Bluetooth and so on. So, we're sort of doing kind of a detective work. So looking at everything, excluding all the possible causes until we find the actual cause or causes. And then once you have that, then it's very easy to find solutions. Yeah, but obviously there's a lot of aspects, kind of lifestyle aspects, what time people go to sleep. So, but we're focusing on the Feng Shui aspect, environmental aspects, so we can cover that. But there's lots of advice online about different, and sleep is a big subject. There are conferences almost, every month on sleep. It's a big problem nowadays, but mainly now to do, I would say maybe 60%, maybe 70% of the problems are due to electromagnetic radiation, people being on the mobile phones, blue light, all kinds of things that they do before they go to sleep. Yeah. So
I would agree.
Right. So let's go back to that question that Jackie had about the bathrooms, the kind of general question about the location for the bathroom, and what sort of things to do. Do you have any general suggestion, Chrissie?
Not particularly, but I think, like I've said about the decor, I think if you can include, if you can, I know some bathrooms are all completely tiled and things like that, but actually if you can have a piece of artwork, it could be a poster or something in your bathroom, I think it's quite a good idea. I think it's quite nice because it is a room where you are refreshing yourself and nourishing yourself as well, really. So I think it's really important that actually, just like going into your bedroom should feel like a sacred space, I think going into a bathroom should feel quite a treat. You know, the temperature should be right, the lighting should be right. I've been to 1 or 2 properties with clients where the bathroom is almost their sort of little afterthought, and it is just a square box with tiles, and it's quite bleak. And I've always say to people about a lot of things, think how things make you feel. And so when I imagine myself and think, well, I imagine myself thinking, I really wouldn't want to be in here for very long. I probably might just clean my teeth and wash my face. But apart from that, I don't want to spend lots of time in here. And I think you should try and make your bathroom with, you know, using the elements that you can in the areas that they are. So if, for example, your bathroom's in a fire area, you know, you use a few, you know, red, bright yellow colors, shapes and things like that, you know, make it look quite exciting and a nurturing sort of area to be.
Yes, so I love designing bathrooms, and over the years, I think I've cracked it, and I kind of figure out what's an ideal bathroom. And a lot of research suggests now that bathroom actually very important for people. People spend more and more money on the bathrooms, and it's a big selling point, you know, when people trade their properties. So if you've got a window, great, especially with a nice view. So you can get some light, you can position your bath, you know, accordingly. So maybe when you're lying in your bed, if you have a bath, you know, you can see something outside, yeah? So what you see when you're coming into the bath is important. So I would ideally, if I was designing ideal baths, I would see a bath. Immediately you feel relaxed, especially if it's a nice bath, yeah, and a window. Then I would probably hide on the side the toilet, or have it separate. So that gives you that privacy, especially if you're sharing it, family or partners. So that's a useful kind of tip. And obviously you're limited with the plumbing and so on. But you know, if you've got a lot of resources, you can create anything. And so your idea, Chrissie, that you make it interesting, you know, vibrant, it's a very good way to kind of remedy this idea that bathrooms are kind of problematic in a way. So the more positive you feel about the space, the more kind of negative it might have, if you believe in that sort of things. Mirrors, obviously, big mirrors, expand the space. Most bathrooms are small. So also, as you said, artwork, posters that can expand space. I've designed bathroom when we had the whole wall was a photographic wallpaper of a seaside or meadow or whatever people like, you know. And now, you know, photographic wallpapers are very inexpensive. You can print anything you like. You can have one wall, you can have the whole thing around, you know, and the waterproof and so on. It's a beautiful way to kind of create extra space, especially if you don't have a window. What else? So mirrors. Obviously, you can spend a lot of money on the actual toilets. They're not that expensive. You know, you probably have heard of those Japanese toilets where they measure your temperature, do all kinds of amazing things, and you know, they're not that expensive. You know, you can spend, you know, a couple of thousand and you have amazing time. I've seen them, and they're probably worth the money. So people spend on that as well.
And really towels. I always say, you know, treat yourself to really nice towels. And, you know, if you want to introduce an element somewhere and you're thinking, well, the walls are white, they are white. Well, you can introduce an element with a different colored towel or whatever. It's just, well, think of that feeling when you go to a really nice hotel, if you get that opportunity. One of the things you like is the fact that you walk in there and there's a pile of, or a few really nice towels. I think that's a huge thing. Don't make your towels look like a bit of an afterthought.
Yes, yes, I completely agree. And like you say, you know, energizing colors, kind of bright colors, kind of, because a lot of people go for kind of boring colors and kind of neutral, and they don't do anything for the space. Yeah, so reds, pinks, anything kind of vibrant, you can change it. You know, this in Pantone has this idea of every year they have different colors, so you can just change every year the towels. I change towels every year actually, and different kind of designs and fun things. So kind of make it interesting, and especially if you've got a nice bath and you want to spend some time. I've got books You know, I was thinking of getting a little television, but I can read things and the iPad as well when I'm having a bath. But so yes, so put some energy into that and make it interesting. Plus, if you don't, you know, just little pictures, fun things, anything kind of energizing will do the trick. You know, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Actually, a couple of things that we shouldn't have really. So mirrored tiles, big no-no in Feng Shui because they kind of dissect your energy. And cabinets that kind of have the split in the middle. Very, very common. It's not nice to see yourself kind of split in the middle, yeah? Or those ones that kind of overlap and then kind of your image is even split. So this is one of those cabinets Picasso had. That's why he had this idea about painting faces in a kind of distorted way, you know, because he had a mirrored cabinet like that. So he made a lot of money out of that, but for most people, not a good idea. I suggest big mirrors. If you've got a lot of square things, because most people have tiles, I would prefer a round mirror, a big round mirror if you've got space. So octagonal mirrors are also very nice. So create other sort of shapes that make it more interesting. And so obviously the other aspect is the bathroom with a toilet, but some people have obviously separate toilets, you know, and that's, we can do other things as well. Kind of energizing colors and interesting things, you know, you can hang pictures and so on to change the energy basically. So what you're doing is you're changing the energy for better. So more uplifting, because again, the energy from the 5 elements kind of going down, water is going down, so you want to uplift it. So as I said, plants, anything moving up, lights, etc., will help with balancing this space. But
and one of my favorite plants in the bathroom, and I always have one in, but they're always different because when they've run their lease of life with me, are orchids.
Oh, really?
Orchids today are so beautiful. They don't need masses of light. They don't really need tons of attention, but there are so many beautiful ones. So you can ring the changes with them. And I find them a sort of great way of introducing that sort of bit of fun into the bathroom in a plant, as opposed to perhaps just having a green leaf plant. So just a little tip. Yeah,
excellent. No, there's a lot of sort of air cleansing plants, and you can find them online. Like famous, you know, peace lily or spider plant. You know, some require some light. Yeah, so if you don't have much light, that might be a problem. But you can always change them, and you know, so yeah, right. So, but in terms of the placement, I as I said earlier, I don't have a problem. You know, whatever is appropriate, whatever is needed, and I wouldn't sort of buy into this idea that it kind of damages your bagua in some way. I don't buy into that. Personally, I don't believe that. So, and I haven't found evidence because I've been to places where people have toilets, not really nice actually, and bathrooms in the wealth corner, and they had a lot of money. So, and they didn't know. So there are obviously other balancing elements in the environment and so on, but it's, you need to be a bit careful when you buy into certain ideas that are kind of opinions, really. You know, we mentioned earlier in a disclaimer that these are our opinions. Obviously, there's some research into certain aspects, and we can quote that. But most of the Feng Shui is people's perceptions about how environments affect them. Yeah.
I did see something on the chat, Jan. There, someone put something about what does space clear mean?
Oh yes. Okay, go ahead.
So I didn't know whether someone was just like me to just explain briefly if they don't know what space clearing is. It's really a ceremony, if you like. One can make it quite elaborate. I might do if I was doing a property, but it's where we burn something like North American sage, where we're trying to remove the negative energy. We go around the walls of a room, we get it well ventilated. Certainly if we're going around a house, we well ventilate everywhere. So I'm just doing a brief description of it. And then we make loud noises. It might be with bells or banging cymbals or something like that. And then so this is basically that you're sort of removing the negative energy, then you're removing, then you're getting all the sounds that will go into every corner of the place to transform it. And then you finally calm the energy down, bring it right back down to earth, set all your intentions in it. So you may use different sorts of sprays or something like that, or harmony bells. And you just go around doing that. And it's one of those things that a lot of people have done, often if they've moved into new property. It's quite nice, so that people before might have been very nice people, but you're actually removing any energy there that has been soaked, if you like, in by the walls or the property, and you're leaving yourselves with a blank canvas to put your new energy in. You might also do it if you've had some illness in a particular room. I remember doing one here where we'd had a break-in into one of our rooms, and the first thing I did that morning was to whip round and do a space clear to get rid of the energy of the intruder and that feeling that our space had been invaded. You can do it for all sorts of things, you know, unpleasant things happening, disputes, and you know, if you've been somewhere where people have been having terrible arguments and things like that, always good to have a space clearing. Space clearing is a wonderful thing to do, basically renewing the energy and putting clear energy in. So that's a very, you know, very brief description of it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So yeah, it's one of the top remedies, if you like, in Feng Shui, because it's very easy to do. You don't have to have much money to do it. You can use all kinds of things. So like, you know, you can use those 5 elements like you mentioned. So you can use sprays, that's water. Some people use holy water. Then you can use plants, wood element, and so on, fire, candles. I'm not really for candles because of the air pollution. And I measured how much air pollution one candle makes. So I'm not, but I use fire. So I don't know if you can see at back, there's a little plasma ball. So that's fire energy, and it kind of creates a plasma field around it. So there's lots of different ways of having fire element cleansing as such without using candles, if you like. Yeah, from time to time I would use it. Yeah, I use smudge stick, you know, sage, all kinds of herbal things that you can burn, and in many cultures they have that. Then, you know, earth element, crystals, you know, you need to be mindful that you need to cleanse them because they kind of absorb the energy and can magnify. So if a lot of negativity happens around them, if you like, then they can magnify it. So you need to cleanse them under running water and maybe dry it in the sun, and then metal, wind chimes and so on, sound, things like that can cleanse the space. Yeah, and it's very simple. So not only just clearing anything that you don't want, but also enhancing things. Yeah, you're starting a new project. You might feel, I just clear my office just because we're starting a new project. Yeah, or you need more work or something else. It creates a change. Basically, it moderates the energy. There is actually a scientific word for it. It's called space conditioning. Space clearing is space conditioning, and there's couple of quantum physicists who wrote a book about it, and they tried to measure it with all kinds of things. So most cultures have that, and we feel better. But basically, we're all doing space clearing, just tidying up, cleaning. But space clearing from Feng Shui is kind of intentional. So you have an intention, why you're doing it, what's the purpose, and how you're doing it. But it doesn't matter how, it's more why, you know, and doing it. And it could take, you know, 5 minutes. So I've got like here, I've got 2 space clearing needs. So like, if you want to get them to this Australian bush flower one, and there is this one's quite nice actually. It's from Finland, sacred space. But if you Google, you'll find lots of remedies. You can make them your own. You don't have to buy them. You can buy some essential oils, a few drops, get a little sprayer, and you feel different immediately.
And I see
spray your aura as well, so it's quite nice. Yeah.
Rahim has just put a message saying frankincense. Yes, I always use a bit of nitrogy, which is one of my favorite ones. Well, I'll always use that if I'm.
Yeah, it's one of the top essential oils. You know, if you've heard of Neil's Yard Remedies, that's the #1 seller. They put frankincense to everything.
Yeah.
No, a bit too much for my taste, but
yes.
Oh yeah, so it's quite strong smell, so you need to be careful. But
you have
literally millions of ways of space clearing. But and you can do it with your mind. You prayers, you know, people chant, you know, singing, putting some nice music, you know, calming music, energizing music. So and people have been doing it, all the time. But I think the key thing is the intention, and kind of works better. The quality is more important than the quantity. Is if you do it kind of mindfully with the right intention, it works immediately. So I've in my practice, it's the first remedy for selling a place. The space clearing. And
Oh,
people,
absolutely.
yeah.
And actually, I know a lot of therapists who always space clear their room with their masseurs or whatever. They will always space clear their room after each client, because obviously people leave their energy behind and they want to make it nice. So yeah, I think it's great. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And as you said, bedroom, yeah, you just want clear space, from time to time, just space clear that. So we're doing very well. Any other questions? Can you make your own smudge sticks from herbs like rosemary? Yes, absolutely. So traditionally, smudge stick is from sage. So you can grow your sage. I grow some sage outside, and from dry leaves you can make it. You can buy it. It's easier. But different herbs will have different properties. You can read about them, and whatever kind of attracts you. But in herbology, there's a very interesting principle that whatever herb you need is already in your garden if you have a garden. And it's quite spooky. Then sometimes you have a problem and you find, like Chrissie said, you do space clearing and you find something that you need, because you have it already. So that kind of intention to do something about it will open up a whole range of possibilities for you. And but if you want to look for things, there will be lots of lists of different ways of doing your own kind of smudging things. But yes. Okay. So I think any other questions you want to ask or comment? Because this is a time where we can open to everybody. You can make any comments or learnings or next steps. We're interested what you got out of this session, because this is the first session we're doing. And there'll be other consultants doing it. So next time will be somebody else. And we've got some dates which we published in the chat. So next one is 2nd of November, always on Wednesday in the evening, and 7th of December. And we'll publicize that on our website, on the Feng Shui Society / Feng Shui webinars. You can find it. And we'll record. We've recorded it. We'll publish that for people to view it later. We might add some resources and some of the questions. So it's a resource for others to learn about Feng Shui in different ways. Yeah. So, but any comments or takeaways? Anything that you would do? Yes, Joy.
I had a question in the chat. Do you have any experience of people with smartphones switching off their Wi-Fi at night and losing their automatic settings?
Yes, so that's an issue. So yes, when you, because some people actually have something called demand switches, where they cut out a lot of electricity to have optimal environment for sleeping. And some, if not set it up properly, can cut out certain electrical devices, and then you have to set it up. So yeah, that's an issue, but can be resolved. You just need to talk to your electro engineer or whoever set it up to make sure that that's not the case. Yeah, but from my perspective, your bedroom is the most important part. I wouldn't worry too much about other rooms. So if you create kind of, and as Chrissie says, you can get very inexpensive gadgets to measure electromagnetic radiation. They cost about £100. There's one called Trimeter. It's very easy to get on Amazon, and it will measure electric, magnetic, and radio frequencies. Not high radio frequencies like 5G networks and so on, but just general one. It gives you a good idea about what's happening. You might need to get a device to check for dirty electricity, which you plug it into your electrical circuit, and you see how much dirty electricity is different frequencies overlapping in your electrical circuits. The more gadgets you have, the more transformers you have, the more dirty electricity. Plus, if your electrical cables are not done properly for whatever reason, that can increase dirty electricity. And I've been to houses where the levels were 200, sometimes 300 times over the limit. There are certain limits that I kind of recommended. So because the house has become more wired than ever. So yes, that could be an issue. But doing other little things, reducing metal in the environment, foam mattresses, etc., will reduce how much your bed space can absorb or attract that sort of electromagnetic radiation. I definitely not recommending smart meters. There's a lot of research on them, and they're problematic, definitely. People become hyper electrosensitive. We're all electrosensitive because remember, your body runs on electricity. Even chemical reactions in your body are electrical in nature. We are electrical beings. So any electrical fields will affect us. And as I said earlier, there's tons and tons of research how electromagnetic radiation affects our health. So on my list of all the things in Feng Shui, electrosmog is number one now. Then it's probably geopolic stress for health reasons and all the other things in that sort of order. Is it better to have your laptops and computers tethered rather than depending upon the Wi-Fi? Yes. A BT engineering told us that tethering devices are more reliable anyway. Correct. So I've got my computer wired. I've got Wi-Fi. I switch it off. Yeah. But, I use laptops and so on. So I need it. Yeah. But sometimes I switch it off completely and I just use my computer, which is wired to the internet. You could wire, a lot of people, especially hyper electrosensitive people, wired everything. They have everything because they're so sensitive. By the way, I mentioned the bath and the bathroom we're talking about. So interesting story. They ask hyper electrosensitive people when they don't have the symptoms. And they all thought, oh, only when we had a bath. When you're having a bath, you're grounded, and therefore all the electrosmog kind of goes through your body. Yeah. So grounding is one of the simple kind of remedies for electrosmog problems. And people can get little mats. You have to do it properly. You have to know what you're doing, measure it, and so on. So don't just buy something and plug it in. You need to kind of measure it, how it works, because each environment will be different. And also your body mass will have different electrical sensitivity. And there's a little test called body voltage. Again, you can buy little testers and you can measure how much electrosmog goes through your body in your bedroom, on your bed, or in your office. So then you have some kind of a measure to know what's going on. So you're not guessing. Now, obviously, your feelings should tell you, but if you're not very well, you're probably not going to be very accurate with your senses. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Wire everything. And now it's easy, especially, nowadays most homes have that already. It's expensive, but it's a good idea to avoid Wi-Fi. Yeah. Right. Okay. So we've got 15 minutes left. Any other comments or insights you got from this forum? What would you do next? Any practical? We're interested, obviously, in practical solutions, that inexpensive solution that people can use, and kind of universal, applying to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, there is another question in the chat about whether is it better to have your laptops and computers tethered rather than dependent upon the Wi-Fi, because a BT engineer has told us that.
Yeah, so that's why I was answering that question. Yeah, correct. So wire everything as much as possible, especially when you're working in one place and you don't have a laptop, you're not moving around, just plug it from your, now, not all routers have that function where you can just switch off the Wi-Fi anymore. So you need to look at that as well. But most routers will have a plug, you plug in the cable to your computer and it works, yeah. And then you obviously, you can switch off. So in my place, I'm quite lucky. I don't have a mobile signal. So everything is sort of on wire because of the telephone. Yeah, but I can take my phone calls to my computer. So I actually don't need to use my mobile phone at home. So that's handy. But it's good to have flexibility, obviously. The most important thing, as I said, is the sleep. As long as you don't have too much radiation during night, then probably you'll be fine. Yeah. During the day, it's very difficult to avoid it, especially you go outside and it's everywhere. So, right. So, Chrissie, do you have any comments or last insights about what we've been covering today?
I don't think so. Anything extra on what we've talked about. All I would say is my little message would be, it might be winter time, but don't forget that it's still nice to be welcomed when you get home, when you arrive home, or when people come to your home. So if possible, have a nice pot of pansies or something that welcomes you by the side of your door. It'll say hello to you and to your guests. And obviously, if you get back in the dark in the evenings, make sure that you perhaps have a light on somewhere so that your home can welcome you back in the evening, and also your guests. And my last thing is that just remember that everything that you see around your home, outside, inside, has an effect on you. And if something just doesn't feel right or look right, then do something about it. Don't put up with it.
Absolutely, I completely agree. So they've got another question. What are your thoughts on shungite, which is supposed to block against certain EMFs? So shungite is a kind of a mineral, or not stone, but a kind of element from the earth. And there's a lot of writing about that. It kind of blocks it. Well, my experience, and I've got a lot of equipment to measure radiation, it doesn't block. It does something, so you might feel different, and maybe it affects your energy, your aura, your body, but it doesn't block it. It's in physics, if you maybe you've missed the physics class, the only way to block electromagnetic radiation is to live in a Faraday cage. There's no other way. There's not, obviously, people now who are electrosensitive, there's a lot of research on that. There's whole societies for that. They have special clothing, but still you have to be completely covered, in this material to block electromagnetic radiation, which is not practical. So try it, see how it works, but I would definitely check it with a little gadget to measure the level of radiation. It's not going to block it. There's no way it can block it. There is something in it. People rave about it, but I think it looks like a gimmick, really. You need to be careful about those little kind of promises where you stick a little stick on your mobile phone and it promises that will stop, radiation. No, you've been warned. All the mobile phone companies put a warning when you're buying a mobile phone. Keep it away from your body. That's the first thing. Yeah. So use, speakerphone or some other ways, to distance yourself from. The best advice I can give you: further away from radiation, the better. It's as simple as that. But by all means, try it, see how it works, and report to us next time. We're here.
Oh, and one more thing about talking about sleep and stuff that I have an absolute barney about with various people is baby monitors. Baby monitors. They're the most precious thing that they have, and they stick a flipping monitor often in the cot, and they've got cameras on them and everything. They really do have very high EMF. And I really recommend against them. Tremendous.
And especially sometimes because they have a strong transformer, a plug to convert the electricity, and if it's near the cot, the field is quite big. And remember, baby's small, so obviously they need to have it. There's different ways of doing it. There's more and more monitors that are kind of safer, as far as possible from the cot,
Yeah.
And then babies sleep better, but definitely, that's a big concern. But there's more and more awareness of electromagnetic radiation nowadays, but still people do silly things and then have problems. So my takeaway is I agree with Chrissie that it's winter time. So when you think about homes, and they've done studies, so I'm an environmental psychologist, and environmental psychology is basically like Feng Shui, but with science-based evidence. And they've done studies what makes a home. And if I ask you now, give me a few adjectives about what makes a kind of a nice home, an ideal home. You come up with all kinds of things, but one of the top might be warmth. When people go to people's homes and there's certain warmth, whether it's colors or just physical temperature, people feel at home. We associate certain sensations with kind of homes, yeah? So make your home warm. Obviously nowadays problems with electricity and power supply and prices, so on. But you can do it in different ways with warm colors, cushions, everything else. The first impression is kind of nice and warm, yeah? And very inviting. So definitely that's a good idea. Another kind of general comment from today, and that kind of relates to how we do Feng Shui, how we look at different ways. So there's a lot of evidence for certain aspects of Feng Shui. Feng Shui is not a science, you know. I would sort of say maybe 10, 20, maybe 30% of Feng Shui claims can be validated with some other research, especially from environmental psychology. But it's more of an art, more of a philosophy, a lot of concepts in Feng Shui, like yin and yang is a concept, Bagua is a concept, even Qi is a concept, you know, because we don't know really what it is. So lots of concept, and a lot of people who just started, they think it's a fact. It's not a fact. I distinguish between facts and opinions. So, for example, I don't know, Paris is the capital of France. It's a fact today. In the future, it might change, but today, Paris is the capital of France. Berlin is not the capital of France. So we can agree on that, yeah? H2O is a chemical formula for water, yeah? But, you know, Paris is the capital of France, but a lot of people think Paris is romantic. I think that some parts of Paris are romantic. Not all Paris is romantic to me. That's my opinion. And the same with Feng Shui. You need to be very careful not to get confused about facts and opinion. Most of the things that you read about Feng Shui are people's opinion, people's interpretation of how things work. And sometimes it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't make sense because they didn't explain it properly. But if there is very good. A lot of things could be validated with just basic common sense. So do you need research about, you know, clutter clearing? I don't think so. It's just so obvious, yeah? So you need to be careful not to kind of fall into this category of give yourself false problems. So I believe in Bagua that there is this, but it's in a conceptual world. I don't believe there is such a thing. I believe there is a representation of that idea of wealth and prosperity, and that can be assigned to a space, southeast, or the top corner of the property, or anywhere in your environment. So I've got kind of, you know, prosperity kind of symbols or images all over the place. You know, I don't just get stuck in one area. I just don't want that area to control my life. Yeah, the same with toilets. We're talking about. You know, people think that the toilet lid controls their, finances. No, you do. So that's my kind of general comment about how Feng Shui works. That's where I come from. I come from holistic approach, where I do believe that environments, Feng Shui, everything else affects you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And there's research for that, you know. So that's where I'm from. I don't know, what's your approach to Feng Shui, Chrissie?
I would very much agree with you, Jan. I don't get hung up on certain things. I think a lot of it I use as a guide, and some things are quite funny how they work out when you're using the Bagua in people's homes and in your own home. And you often think, well, isn't that an amazing coincidence? But I do think that it is really just being tremendously mindful all the time about all the areas of your life which are covered under the Bagua, or all the various aspects that make up your life, of really trying to keep them in balance. And with the symbolism, if you like, those give us little reminders that we can keep on an even keel. you can go into a house and see, you know, symbolism that's all the way through just one sort of thing, and you're thinking, well, this is why this is all a bit uneven and this person's got certain issues, because those are the things that they're focusing on or seeing every day. And so I think it's very important that you use that, and you use the expression holistic. I agree with you as well. I think it's everything. It's how people think and feel. It's how you feel. When people say, you know, what about that? I often say, well, how does it make you feel? And then, you know, you can look at a piece of art and you'll say, well, how does it make you feel? And they go, oh, I absolutely hate it. And I'm thinking, well, why have you got it on your wall? There we go. So I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree too with the using our feelings, how we react to certain things in our environment. It's a good measure, and it's also, you can back it up with common sense. Doesn't make sense, you know, and then you can do some research to see if it's valid, yeah, and experiment, you know. So before you spend any big money on certain remedies.
Absolutely.
So that was great. Thank you very much. So we're going to stop recording now. And then if anybody